I'd first like to apologise for my casual dress. I'm on my way to the airport straight from here, so I'm trying to travel as light as possible, so I hope you'll let me excuse me. And also to say I'm not an expert in education. My work is in disability, but of course the projects that we cover around the world as the Leprosy Mission do include education projects and advising ministries of education and other partner organisations. In 2008, the UN Convention for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities entered into force. And at the present time, over 150 countries have signed that convention. Many of them will be countries where our various organisations work. In the countries who have signed, and especially the countries who have ratified it, which are slightly over 100 countries, are now have to, by law, think about the rights of people with disabilities. And one of the articles is specifically about education. Article 24 states, state parties recognise the right of persons with disabilities to education with a view to realise this right without discrimination and on the basis of equal opportunity. And then Article 24 is one of the longest articles in the Convention because there are so many things that exclude children with disabilities from accessing primary, secondary and tertiary education, and also exclude adults with disabilities from any form of adult education. Some mention the second Millennium Development Goal, and she said that education is free. While in Nigeria, on paper, education is free. In practice, there are an awful lot of fees to pay, and if you happen to have an impairment, that means that you need some special equipment or some alterations made to the way that you learn. You need help to help you learn. That is not free. So you and your family have to find the funds, whether that's a wheelchair, whether that's a ramp up to the classroom, whether it's a way of communicating because you have a sensory impairment. You have to pay for that. Therefore, to say that education is free, there are quite a lot of footnotes and exclusions to that. I only have 10 minutes, so these are some of the things I'm hoping that we're going to look at in the workshop. These are priority areas when you're thinking about including disabled people in education. First of all, awareness raising. In theory, education is for all, and we have the statistics in the previous presentation. There are statistics that tell us that 98% of disabled people in low to middle income countries are not in school. That should be in school are not in school. And this is for a variety of reasons. Some are the problems with the education system itself, some are the problems with the family and the community where the disabled people are. But there's an awful lot of awareness raising that we need to do as organisations. Awareness raising with governments, specifically with the Ministry of Education, but also with other ministries, with public and private schools, also with faith schools, with charitable schools, whoever owns the schools. And also, we need to raise the important issue of the debate between inclusive education, which the Convention talks about, and possible segregated or special education. Just recently, I conducted a study with disabled people in Nigeria. They weren't that bothered about inclusive education. Their big thing was, give us quality education. If it's inclusive, fine. If it's segregated, fine. Just give us good quality education. So maybe in the West and in the Convention, it emphasises inclusive education in mainstream schools, but the disabled people I've spoken to are not that bothered. We need to identify disabled children in the communities we're working with. Now, for a disability-specific organisation like ours, that's easy to do. We can do surveys and stuff. But your more general organisations that don't look at disabled people specifically, that might be more difficult. But we need to work with the communities we work with. We work in to identify disabled children and to get them in school. We need to know who's in school, who isn't in school, find out the problems of those in school, find out what is stopping those who aren't in school from going to school. We need to support parents. One of the biggest things that, again, in talking with families with disabled children, is that the parents themselves are stigmatised, they are scared of letting the children out, they are worried that the children will be injured if they go to school, they don't know what their rights are, they don't know what possible facilities there are. So supporting parents in their fight, because very often it is a fight, to get their children into school. Teacher training is important, and again, I'm not an education specialist, but we need to be able to help teachers to find alternative teaching methods. When I interviewed people who were deaf, they said if the teaching methodology was more written, then it would be easier for them to manage than if it was an oral teaching methodology. If written isn't possible, then we need to have the possibility of sign language. And most deaf people will ask for sign language to be a recognised language in the country where they are. Accessibility, you can think about ramps, you can think about wide enough doors for wheelchairs, you can think about all kinds of issues with accessibility. And it's not just the accessibility to the classroom, it's accessibility to the play area, it's accessibility to the toilets, and the dormitories if it's a boarding school, the bathing areas. We have to think about accessibility for all areas. And then some of the work that we're involved with at the moment is working with governments to help them to develop inclusive education policies. I'm on my way, as I said, to Asia, and I'm going to Myanmar, and we're currently rewriting the disability law so that it includes disabled people in all aspects. And there's a big section, as I said, on education. Just to show you a few photos, this is one of our projects in India. It's a social exclusion project, but it looks specifically at people who with disabilities who are excluded. This young man is Segal. If you look carefully, you can see he's got a hearing aid in. For him, hearing aids were the answer. But for so many deaf children, for them to go to school, the answer is sign language. And we need to make sure that there are enough teachers trained in sign language, enough classroom support workers, if that's in place, for sign language to take place as well. This is in Chad. This is a Braille school that I went to. In the project we support in Chad, they first of all train the blind children how to read and write Braille, and then, as soon as possible, they get them into a mainstream school, and they are with a personal assistant. And the personal assistant transcribes the notes, transcribes the handouts, so that the child can be in mainstream school. The records coming from the school is that the blind children are performing better than the sighted children. So that's a real encouragement to us. And for many children that we work with, the problem of getting to school is why they're not going to school. This is again in Chad, in Mongo, in the centre of Chad. And when I first went to Chad, this young man hadn't been to school because he physically couldn't get there. And he was just doing a little bit he could do with his parents at home. We were able to help him with one of these tricycles with a project that we support there. And now he's able to go to school. And again, he's performing very, very well. You can see he's quite old, so he's had to start in a class below his age. So we have to think about that. And then the last picture, as I said, do please think beyond the classroom. Students do need to go to the toilet, they do need to bath, they do need to access the dormitories if it's a boarding school. So we do need to think about that. That's my 10 minutes.